It usually starts as a quiet thought in the back of your mind. You're sitting in a conference room, staring at a presentation with a dozen colorful graphs, a couple of buzzwords like innovation and synergy sprinkled across the slides, and maybe a stock photo of people laughing in an office. Everyone's nodding politely, but you can't help but think, yes, but why? That tiny three-letter question, why, isn't just about curiosity. It's about purpose. And that, Simon Sinek argues, is where true leadership begins. In his book Start With Why, Sinek peels back the glossy layer of what companies do and how they do it, to reveal the thing that actually drives loyalty, action, and inspiration, their why. The basic idea is both profound and deceptively simple. The most influential leaders and the most successful organizations aren't just in the business of selling products or services, they're in the business of selling belief. They know exactly why they exist, and they communicate that belief so clearly that others feel drawn to it almost instinctively. When you start with why, you're not pushing people toward a transaction, you're pulling them into a movement. The golden circle, your mission's bullseye. To explain this, Sinek introduces his famous model, the golden circle, which looks like a target with 3 rings. At the outer ring is what? The products or services you sell. This is the easiest to define. Ask any company and they can rattle it off in seconds. The middle ring is how, the process, principles, or values that shape the way you operate. This takes a little more thought but is still relatively clear. And then, in the very center, sits why, the deeper reason you exist beyond making money. Here's where things get interesting. Most companies operate from the outside in. They start with what they sell, then explain how they sell it, and maybe, if they remember, throw in a vague mission statement that's supposed to cover the why. But the truly exceptional leaders and brands flip that order. They start with why first, then figure out how, and finally define what. Take Apple for example. Their what is obvious: they make computers, phones, and gadgets. Their how is through sleek design and user-friendly interfaces. But their why is what really sets them apart. They exist to challenge the status quo and empower individuals through technology. That belief resonates with people on a personal level. They're not just buying a phone, they're buying into a vision. That's why fans camp outside Apple stores for product launches when they could technically just buy another smartphone with similar specs. Why logic isn't enough. Most of us like to think we're logical creatures who make decisions based on facts, numbers, and reason. But Sinek gently bursts that bubble by pointing to human biology. The why actually speaks to the limbic brain, the part of our brain responsible for feelings, loyalty, and trust. The what and how appeal to the neocortex, the part that handles rational thinking and language. This means when you lead with why, you're speaking to people's emotions first. And emotions are powerful. They're what makes someone wear the same brand of sneakers for 20 years, or travel halfway across the country to attend a concert, or pay more for a coffee just because they believe in what the cafe stands for. Logic comes later, often as a way to justify the emotional decision that's already been made. Think about it. When Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous speech, he didn't say, "I have a plan." He said, "I have a dream." That's pure why. The details, the policies, the strategies, they came afterward, but it was the dream that moved people. The law of diffusion of innovation. Winning the right people first. Sinek borrows from Everett Rogers' law of diffusion of innovation to explain how ideas spread. Imagine a bell curve divided into 5 groups. Innovators, these are the fearless few who'll try something new before anyone else even hears about it. Early adopters, visionaries who see the potential in new ideas and are willing to take a calculated risk. Early majority, pragmatists who need evidence and proof before jumping in. Late majority, skeptics who only join when something has become mainstream. Laggards, the ones still wondering if email is a passing fad. If you want your idea to gain traction, you don't aim for the masses first, you start with the innovators and early adopters. And here's the secret. These groups care far more about your why than your what. They'll support you because they believe in your mission, not because you have the cheapest prices or the longest feature list. Once they're on board, their enthusiasm helps pull the early majority, and eventually the rest, into your circle. Apple nailed this when they launched the iPod. They didn't advertise 1 gigabyte of storage, a what statement. They said, 1,000 songs in your pocket. That's a vision people could instantly see themselves in. Clarity, discipline, and consistency, the leadership trinity. Having a why isn't enough. You also need the ability to protect it, live it, and prove it every day. Sinek says this comes down to 3 elements. Clarity of why. You can't inspire people if you can't articulate your purpose clearly. Your why should be so obvious that it doesn't need a 10-page document to explain it. Discipline of how your principles and methods need to align with your why, even when it's inconvenient or costly. Consistency of what everything you do, the products you release, the customer service you provide, the way you communicate, must be consistent with your why. It's like dating. You can't claim your why is commitment and then disappear for 2 weeks without texting back. People can spot that kind of inconsistency a mile away. Why organizations lose their way. Success can be a tricky trap. Many companies start out with a crystal clear why, but as they grow, the focus shifts. Shareholder expectations, market competition, and quarterly targets start taking over. Before long, the why fades into the background, replaced by a relentless obsession with what. Sinek uses Walmart as an example. Sam Walton founded it with the mission of helping people save money to live better. Over time, that purpose was overshadowed by cost-cutting at all costs, sometimes at the expense of employee well-being and community relationships. The original why got lost in the noise. This drift is dangerous because once the why disappears, so does the emotional connection customers and employees feel toward the brand. Without that, loyalty crumbles. Finding your own why. Here's the part where Sinek gets personal. Finding your why isn't something you invent out of thin air, it's something you discover. It's already there, buried in your personal history, values, and passions. The trick is to dig deep enough to uncover it. Ask yourself, what kinds of work or causes make me lose track of time? When have I felt most proud or fulfilled? If I stripped away the money and titles, what would still make me want to get up in the morning? Your why should be short, memorable, and honest, something you could tell a stranger in one sentence and they'd immediately understand. Final thoughts, the power of beginning with why. At the end of the day, start with why isn't just a playbook for companies, it's a philosophy for anyone who wants to lead, inspire, or simply live with more intention. When you start with why, decisions get simpler, your message becomes clearer, and the right people naturally find their way to you. Think of it like being a lighthouse in a storm. The ships out there might not see the shore yet, but your light, the steady glow of your purpose, guides them in. You don't have to shout directions, you just have to keep shining. And maybe that's the lesson Sinek leaves us with. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, or just figuring out your own next step, starting with why isn't optional. It's the difference between drifting aimlessly and moving forward with conviction. It's the difference between having customers and having believers.